And so we're in this series. If you're new or you haven't been following along, we're in the middle of a series on the Ten Commandments, but we're actually we're on the second last commandment, all right? So we're on commandment number 9 today. And every week, so now if you're new here, then you haven't memorized it. Like everybody here at Crossview knows their Bibles back and forth. They know all the 10 Commandments just like this now. That's just how we roll here at Crossview. So we're just going to start with a review. All right? So how many of these do you by now know? And again, the Crossviewers, they're all at like 100%. All right? So what's the first one? What's the first commandment? No other gods, right? Before Yahweh. What's the second commandment? No idols. Good. These guys are amazing. Okay, number 3. Don't take Yahweh's name in vain. What's the fourth one? Keep the Sabbath, which we don't do. And if you're wondering about that, go back and listen to the sermon. But anyway, it's in the 10 Commandments, and we should know the 10 Commandments. What's the fifth one? I can see some of you have absolutely no idea. Blank stares and smiles. Someone around me will know it. Honor your father and mother, okay? And that one, we had a lot of fun with that one. There's some huge contextual things that really bring that one to life. What's the sixth one? This is the big one. Please don't do this. All right, don't murder. Number 7, very serious topic we spent a week on, don't commit adultery. And last week, what was last week's? Don't steal. And I had someone talking to me already this morning. There was other kinds. I have to come back to that one because there's all kinds of stealing. I think that's common in our society that I didn't even get to. And today, the number 9 one, what's the 9th commandment? There we go. Don't lie. Well, actually, it's not don't lie, and that actually leads us into this. The actual commandment is, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Now, this is not how we remember it. In fact, I'm glad a bunch of you remembered it as don't lie. I'm really happy. That's how I remember it. That's how we are taught it in Sunday school. In Sunday school, they don't give kids bookmarks or posters and teach the kids, don't give false testimony against your neighbor. We say, we just shrink it down and generalize it to don't lie. But that's not actually what it says, is it? It's actually a lot more specific than just don't lie. In fact, it kind of makes you wonder, since this is the 10 Commandments, why wouldn't you go a bit more general? Like, if you just say don't lie, you cover this one, right? So we've got to start this sermon by asking the question, why is this commandment not just do not lie? Why? I mean, do not lie makes a lot more sense in terms of our lives, and that's why we generalize it. Most of us, so false testimony, you say, when you hear the words false testimony, what kind of a setting do you think of? Court. Now, how many of us, you don't have to raise your hand here. Well, most of you aren't going to raise it anyway, because how many times in our lives, or how many of us ever get a chance to go to court and sit in front of a judge and a jury and give witness testimony about something? Not many of us. We feel familiar with the scene because dozens of movies and our favorite TV shows have lots of scenes of people being in court giving witness testimony. But the fact of the matter is, most of us will never have the opportunity to sit in a court and give witness testimony about someone else. And the ones of us who do, it's going to be pretty rare. It's not going to be a whole bunch of times. So it just feels like, of all the things to focus in on, it really feels like you've picked a very small slice of the pie. It just does not feel very practical. Okay, fine, I won't give false testimony against my neighbor. Who cares about the rest of the pie of lying? So why would it not just be do not lie? And when we, subconsciously and not wrongly, by the way, I have most of my life thought of it as just do not lie as well. In fact, I really only paid attention to this fact when we started this series, because I would have given you the list as do not lie as well. So you're not bad for thinking that. Why is it that way? And why do we remember it that way? Well, I think part of the reason we remember it as do not lie is because as modern Christians, we do this all the time. We tend to think of the Bible as and again, most of us have heard this at some point. We think of the Bible as a practical manual for life. That's how lots of us talk about the Bible. So when we tell our non-Christian friends why they should become Christians, one of the things we tell them, oh, the Bible's so amazing, you should read it. It's a practical manual for life. And then, have you ever sat down with them then the next day when they open the Bible to read it? And they open the Bible to Leviticus chapter 16 to get some practical advice for their lives. And they find something about, you did what to the sheep? Why are you cutting out its entrails? And they think, well, okay. Then they go to Numbers, and there's people dying and being killed and smoke and fire and burning. And you think, is this really a practical manual for life? Or is this something a lot messier and also a lot better, I think? See, this is actually an ancient book written by ancient people. And when we kind of trivialize it, when we just think, oh, it's just a manual for my life. So I want to show you a couple of things we do. When we simplify commands like this, when we just make them generalized, practical commandments for our day and age today, I want to show you 3 things that happen. Here's the number 1. We make the Bible revolve around us. See, and this is one more thing that we modern Christians do not need, is more things we think revolve around us. I actually think one of the reasons God wanted us moderns to have an ancient book is because he wanted to humble us. So this book was written by ancient people. It was written for ancient people. And yes, because it's from God, if we wrestle ourselves into their context and see what is God doing and then try to pull back some golden bits, we're going to come out of it prayerfully and God's going to do things in us, but it doesn't revolve around us. And in this specific case, with this specific commandment about giving false testimony, it actually causes us to go astray in 2 ways. First of all, it makes all lying equally bad. When we make commandment 9, just do not lie, we create a huge grab bag of potential actions. We create a massive grab bag of potential actions, and we call them all the same thing. They're all equally seriously. It's all bad. Your spouse asks you, do I look fat in this? Do you tell the truth there? And if you lie, is that as serious as lying about someone in court? Which leads us to another problem then. So when we create a huge grab bag of stuff and just say, all of this is the same thing, it's all equally bad, we actually miss out on God's heart behind this commandment. I wonder how many of you, don't raise hands, I wonder how many of you, either you have been this person yourself or you have known someone like this. So again, you don't need to raise your hand, but I wonder how many of you have ever known someone who had an overactive conscience about things. And probably lying is one of the things they had an overactive conscience about. And maybe some of you have gone through this yourself. These are people who lie awake at night and they're like, oh no, did I get that fact right? Did I exaggerate there? And they're worried they sinned because something they said wasn't accurate. And they're worried. And then days later, they text you or email you or call you and they say, I'm just so sorry, I need to correct something from that story I told you. And you're like, I don't even remember you telling me a story. And by this point, you already remember the story they told you wrong anyway, if you do remember it. Which then causes us to think of God's character in this weird way, like God is this gigantic forensic accountant. Now, some of you have friends who are accountants, and they're amazing people. Very detailed. And we start to think of God as this detail. Oh, you got that wrong. sin, commandment number 9. You exaggerated that a bit. Sin, commandment number 9. And people are confessing. If God cared that much about accuracy, he would have made our brains a lot different than he did. He would have made them photographic instead of what we have, which is incredibly inaccurate. So, what is the heart behind this commandment? And is all lying equally bad? I actually want to focus in on this one just for a moment. I'm going to actually tell you a story. Then we're going to look at a whole bunch more scripture, but I want to tell you a story about one of the most loving things I've ever done. I don't like to brag, but this is like top 10-ish, I think. I think what the story I'm about to tell you is one of the things that on Judgment Day, God's going to say, one of your shining moments, Kris. And now that I've set that up, you're wondering, okay, whoa, what kind of, he just about gave his life. He risked his life for LaDawn and the kids. And yeah, I do that all the time, yeah. But this is, so if we go way, 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 way back, when I was a pastor at Southland, there was a young man, new to the church, and he emails me, and he wants to have a meeting with me. And of course, I love to meet with people. I love people. So I email him back, yeah, you bet, let's meet, yada, 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 certain day, certain time. He shows up at my office, okay? And he's flabbergasted, for some reason, that I would meet with him. So he shows up at my office door, and he's got a little container with 4 muffins in it. And each of the muffins is covered in sprinkles. And even has these like hard ball-like sprinkles throughout the muffin itself, and not just on top. Now again, if you're new here to Crossview, I apologize. One of the things you need to know about me, and this way we don't have mistakes like this in the future. Like, I am disgusted by sprinkles. Like, it's really bad. It's not like, oh, he just doesn't like sprinkles, they're not his favorite. It's like a deep thing I probably need therapy for. But I'm not willing to pay for it. And besides, I think, what, is this really a big deal? Everybody should be disgusted by sprinkles. But when I think of eating sprinkles, it's not just like someone who's like, yeah, I don't like beans. No, this is like something it twists my gut. I can't put that in my mouth. So this guy comes to my office, and he's so happy. He's a single young adult. He's got his 4 muffins. He's even brought little paper plates for the 2 of us. Right? And he's so happy I made these muffins. We could share these muffins during our meeting. Now, commandment number 9, how we think of it is, do not lie. So in this moment, first of all, you have to know my entire body, I'm trying to figure out what to do, but my entire body is in fight, flight, or freeze. I'm not even thinking straight. So now in this moment, as a godly man who follows the 10 Commandments, do I tell him the truth? Do I tell him, I just need to tell you, I would rather ride a bicycle to Winnipeg that has no seat than put that muffin in my mouth? Because that would be the truth. I probably shouldn't have used that analogy, but that's just what's going through my head. No, so in that moment, I'm scrolling. What do I do? See what I did? I went with love. I didn't know what to do, so I just went with love. I'm like, I just have to do something. I just can't embarrass this guy or cause him to lose face, so I plastered a smile on my face. I'm sure it was the most fake looking. He's probably like, what is wrong with this guy? I plastered a smile on my face, and I said, thank you. What a wonderful thought. And I took a bite. And I chewed through the crunchy sprinkles. It took me an hour to get 3/4 of the way through one muffin. But I, every once in a while, took another bite. I honestly believe that on Judgment Day, God's going to say, wow! Now, no doubt there's some therapists here. You actually are like, that was not optimum. And you know how I could have done that better. There's no question, I'm sure I could have done it better. There is probably a way I could have told the truth and been kind at the same time. And no doubt that would have been better than what I did. No doubt. But in the moment, I didn't have the tools. I don't have a therapist on 24/7 speed dial. Like, this is not how life works, right? Phone up, excuse me for a moment. Hey, what do you think of my muffins? Excuse me for just a moment. I got to make a 15-minute call to my therapist to figure out how to tell you the truth without hurting your feelings. How do I do this? So in the moment, I just chose love. And you know what? To this day, I've not felt the need to confess it until now. I still don't feel the need to repent, even though I'm sure there are better ways to do it. And actually, I think we have to be careful on things like this because we can get ourselves into trouble when we're dishonest. I mean, on the flip side, I should just share this to show you that I'm not encouraged. I don't just think dishonesty for the sake of love is the best thing ever. I'm thinking of, I heard a story. I don't even know if it was true. It probably is not. Maybe my wife shared it with me from Instagram or something, right? But I heard about this guy. Him and his wife have been married for many, many, many years. And she made him peas regularly for supper. Like at least once a week, peas was part of supper. And for like decades, 30, 40 years they've been married, he never said anything. And if she would ask him, he's like, oh yeah, this is just wonderful, dear. And finally, after 30 or 40 years of marriage, one day he just takes the peas and dumps them in the garbage. He's like, I can't stand these things. And she's like, what do you mean? I've been giving you peas for 40 years. Well, okay, yeah, so I'm not encouraging people, just lie for love, people, lie for love. It can get you in trouble too. But my point is, there is a huge difference. There are different kinds of lying, and they don't all mean the same thing. That's not lying in court to get someone in trouble, very different from in the moment telling a lie to someone who's made you muffins with sprinkles. So, what is this commandment actually about? Now, I know some of you are also thinking to yourselves right now, okay, well, Kris is telling us a lot about his feelings right now. And we serve a holy God in the universe, and we can't judge right and wrong by our feelings. We need to know the Bible. We need to know right and wrong. Boom! Agree with you? Let's go to the Bible. Does the Bible have any examples of people lying for good? There's actually multiple examples, including some sketchy ones in the New Testament that I'm not going to show because it would have taken me another 30-minute rabbit trail so you didn't all lose your faith. So we're not going to touch on those. We're just going to touch on an obvious one. We're going to go to a famous one of the midwives in Exodus chapter 1, which is the same book where the Ten Commandments are. So the author who wrote the Ten Commandments knows this story. A little bit of situation. What's happening in Exodus chapter 1? Israelites are slaves in Egypt. Their population is growing quickly. So Pharaoh is afraid. If there's too many of these slaves, we're not going to be able to keep them as slaves. They're going to revolt. They're going to overthrow us. All right, so we pick up the story. So Pharaoh has come up with a solution for this growing population. What's the solution? We pick it up. Exodus 1, the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, when you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live. Right? So this is his solution. He gives a very wicked commandment. Kill the baby boys. So, what do these midwives do? The midwives, however, feared God and did not do. That's brave. Blatant disobedience of the command of Pharaoh. Did not do what the kingdom of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Well, clearly you're not going to be able to hide this because you're going to just keep having baby boys everywhere. So, brave disobedience, not going to be able to hide it. So, what happens? Verse 18, then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? Right? So, what should they do? Now, this is of course, this is the Bible, so that makes it a little different for a lot of us modern Christians. But we modern Christians love scenarios like this where we sit comfortably distanced from the scenario, and then we can kind of just have this like mental exercise. What should they do? And I had that as a young adult, when I still thought life was very, very simple. And, you have these debates. What should you do? I remember going through a phase in my life where I thought all lying was absolutely bad. You should just tell the truth and trust God. Right? Just tell the truth and trust God. You're hiding Jews from Nazis, just tell the Nazis and trust God. Well, if I'm a Jew, I want to ask, first of all, what your stance is on this. Because I don't want to have to trust God like you are. My trust is going to have to be bigger than yours, won't it? So what do the Hebrew wives do? Do they tell them the truth? Hey, we're just letting them have babies. And then trust God? Well, no. What do they do? We know. Kind of a famous story. The midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive. So first of all, if that was true, they wouldn't be midwives. Because the whole time, everybody's been having babies without them. Also, the verse before, if we just go to the verse before, 2 verses before, 17, it says specifically, they did not do it. They let the boys live. So, this is a lie. Now, a lot of people, the way we view God is like, he's so holy that if he touches, again, don't raise your hand. This is the kind of stuff I've said in my life too, but pastors will just get it so hyped up on the holiness. If he even touches something that is just a little bit wrong, he just blow up. The holiness is so holy. Which, for so many reasons, is crazy. Jesus lived among people, and nobody blew up. And he forgave people and hugged them and forgave them even when they weren't sorry yet, like all the people around him at the cross. So that's just a weird view of God. But nonetheless, he's so holy, clearly he could not in any way approve of something, even a little lie. Well, let's see what he felt. So God was what? Kind to the midwives. I noticed there wasn't a lot of conviction there. Where is he going? He's tricking us. So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, fearing God, he gave them families of their own. Clearly, God blessed and loved the midwives. Now, this is where some purists who want everything to be very clear, black and white, every single lie must always be wrong to a holy God. Now, you want to come up with an excuse? Well, okay, he was condoning them saving the babies. He wasn't condoning them. It doesn't technically say he was happy with their lies. Just so you know, it also doesn't say he was happy with them saving the babies. You can't get out on a technicality like that. The writer of Exodus is a smart person. If there is a problem in this story, he can easily write, and God had mercy on these poor midwives who couldn't think of a better idea than just to lie. And that part wasn't good, but God blessed them because overall saving the babies was more important. That's not what it says. It just says point blank, he blessed them. The midwives are heroes. So what do we make of that? Well, what we make of it is God's highest value is not accuracy. God's highest value is not even truth, although truth is very, very important. Now, I know as soon as I say that, someone should just clip that into a meme. God's highest value is not truth. That's Kris saying it, and it can just go viral. Truth is incredibly important. But you want to know what matters more than truth? People. That's what I've been telling you throughout this 10 Commandments series. All of the laws hang on, according to Jesus, hang on what? Love. People matter more than any rule or law or commandment. And so in extreme circumstances where the two collide, people matter more. People matter more. Now, no doubt some of you will be worried, oh my. I wish my kids weren't here listening to this because they're going to hear this sermon and it's just lie, lie, lie. Lying doesn't matter. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm actually going to show you different kinds of lies at the end of this sermon. But let's go back to the Ten Commandments. And let's look at what is the heart of this thing. Why is the commandment in the Ten Commandments the way it is and not just general? You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Why so specific? And the answer lies, again, as often with this ancient books, it lies in knowing a little bit of the context behind this. Ancient Israel was nothing like the modern world. They did not have courthouses, elaborate courthouses built in every major town and city with full-time judges working in the courtrooms. Each courthouse has multiple courtrooms and full-time judges and clerks and lawyers and prosecutors working full-time trying thousands of cases every year. They lived a much harsher and more simple life. Most ancient Israelites lived in little subsistence villages with their family and extended family, eking out a living. The amount of crimes you could commit was much smaller, and the amount of penalties available for those crimes was much smaller. I mean, what crimes could you commit in that day and age? It's a lot less than the different ways we can commit crimes now and how big our law codes have to be. You could physically steal stuff. You could assault someone. You could murder someone. And of course, there's no doubt a bunch of other things, but most things came down to stealing, assault, or murder. They didn't have a big, complicated jail system where you have levels of jails. You got federal prison for this amount of years, and then you got provincial, and you got this, and you got holding cells, and no. It's like basically if you stole something, you had to give it back, and you had to pay it back multiple, depending on what it was, you might have to pay back double or 5 times or 6 times. So that was stealing. For everything, for most everything else, the penalty was death. And how did you get convicted? Again, there was no courtrooms. Now, maybe if you lived in Jerusalem, there probably were some court kind of room processes, and you go before some priests and maybe some people who would be judges. But in most of the villages in ancient Israel, that did not happen. You went in front of the elders of your village. Probably your grandpa or your great uncles or some combination of the two. And then, how would they convict you? There's no fingerprint evidence. There's no DNA analysis. There's no surveillance cameras. There's no paper trail or receipts. They were here, and cell tower stuff like they do in TV. I don't know if they do it in real life, but we can see that the cell tower pinged over here, so they were there, and here's a receipt from the 7-Eleven, and boom, here's the bullet casing. You must have done it. They had basically one thing. I mean, if you stole something, you had half a cow in the back of your house, and you did it. But if you assaulted or murdered someone, the only way they can convict you is with what kind of testimony? Witness testimony. By the way, and I wish I had more time, but because I had to cut a bunch of verses out, I could take you, the Old Testament is obsessed. When it talks about lying, the Old Testament 90% of the time is talking about false testimony in court because witnesses had a tremendous amount of power. If you lied about someone, you could get someone put to death or beaten really severely. So that's why the Old Testament then had to put in some rules, like you could only convict someone on a testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. You couldn't be just one. You know what else they did? They had a law where if you gave false testimony and they found out about it, you would get the punishment of what the person you were lying about would have gotten instead of you. Now, sometimes I think not all the ideas in the Old Testament are a bad idea. We'd have a lot less false accusations, wouldn't we? And you know another thing they did to try to make sure that witnesses would have to be, have all the motivations they could to be honest, they would make the witnesses participate in the punishment. So if your testimony was going to convict someone and they were going to get killed, you were going to take stones and be part of the killing. They're just trying to weed out anyone who's just making up something. All right? But the point is, witnesses had tremendous power to destroy lives. The purpose of this commandment is not so much God, now he does care absolutely about truth. I don't want you to hear me saying God doesn't care about truth. I just want you to see what he does very, 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 very much. And truth, in the vast majority of cases, is actually ultimately the best way to live our lives and love people. But you have to see this. The point of this commandment is not that God is obsessed with accuracy and you saying everything accurate and always telling the 100% truth. The point is, God does not want the justice system corrupted to hurt innocent people. He cares about people. People matter more. So, here's the perspective we need to take from this. This is why. So you ask, why would God not just make a general statement that is more applicable to our lives? Why would he not just say, do not lie in general? The answer is this: lies that hurt others are worse than those that don't. Again, I'll just let that be a little uncomfortable because the second half of that sentence makes us as Christians feel uncomfortable. God hates all lying. Yeah, but no. He didn't hate the midwives' lies. Lies that hurt others, it's like a different thing. So now, let's look at some different common types of lying and why we lie and different severity, and then let's talk about some of the less severe ones. All right? So, a couple of categories of lying. First one is this one we've been talking about so far. This is what Commandment 9 is about. Lies that hurt or take advantage of others. So let's just add another couple. So, okay, now in our case, maybe you're not in court or whatever, but let's say you're selling a car and your car has been in an accident. Now you're selling it to someone else and they ask you, has it ever been an accident? And you say, it hasn't been. Why would you tell that lie? Well, because you want the car to sell for more money or you want it to sell, period. So you're telling a lie in order to take advantage of someone. That is breaking this commandment. You're telling a lie to take advantage of someone. You're selling your house. The basement floods every time there's a major storm. Someone comes to buy the house. They ask you, well, have you had any problems? No. Now you say, well, technically, now this is where we get into excuses. So we have to look at two kinds of lying within this too. Let's talk about lies of commission and lies of omission. Because this is where human nature, we love lies of omission. So a lie of commission is person A asks about your house, have you had any problems? No. Then they specifically ask you, has your basement ever flooded? And now you're squirming. Now, if you say no, you've lied. You've outright said something false for the purpose of taking advantage of them. A lot of us feel really uncomfortable with lies of commission. But we feel like we can get away with lies of omission. So we don't tell them about the basement or about the car being an accident. And then we tell ourselves, but they never asked. They never asked. Or they asked us something and we used different wording, so we didn't technically tell a lie. That is a lie of omission. You want to know if you're telling a lie of omission? The golden rule, which, as I've been telling you throughout this series, is the backbone of how we understand the Ten Commandments. If you were in that buyer's shoes, would you want them to tell you that information? If you would, but you don't, that's a lie of omission. You are intentionally leaving out details to take advantage of someone. And these are the most serious kinds of lies, and this is the kind of lie that commandment number 9 is about. Telling lies that hurt or take advantage of others. But I think for many of us, this is not the most common one. Yes, we're tempted in some circumstances. We're trying to sell something or whatever. I don't know all the different things, but I think many of us as Christians, we already know it's like, no, I don't want to hurt this person. And so I think there's some other categories that are much more the kind of lies we're tempted to tell. One of those categories is this one. Lies we tell to protect ourselves from punishment or embarrassment. Now, I want you to notice how different the motivation is in these two kinds of lies. This one is, I'm trying to take advantage of someone, I'm trying to hurt someone. It's malicious. This one, I'm actually not trying to hurt anyone. Usually, I wouldn't want to hurt anyone. I'm trying to protect myself. So, of course, the most classic one, and I was going to say, that our kids do, but actually we adults do. I didn't do it. Who did this? My mom would always say, oh, I know who did it. Nobody did it. Nobody does a lot of stuff in our house. Who did this? Nobody. Okay, nobody did it again. I didn't do it. That's a classic one, right? A lie to protect ourselves. I didn't see your message. How many of you told that one in the last week? I just asked the last week because for me it goes back a week and a half. But anyway, it's like, I didn't see your message. No. I didn't see your message. How come you didn't get back to me? Oh, I didn't see your message. Now, maybe you didn't see their message. Then it's the truth. But sometimes it's a lie. I found it that way. The rental car had that large gash from the beginning. You're late for the 100th time. I got caught in traffic. We're protecting ourselves from punishment or embarrassment. Now, I want you to notice. Now, I'm going to show you, again, these are not good. I'm not saying these are good. They're not good. And they have consequences in our lives, but these are not what Commandment 9. Commandment 9 is talking about hurting people with our lies. And I'll show you something, but I just want to tie in a third, and there's many more different kinds of lies. I'm only touching on 3, just because of time. There's a third category of lying, which is avoiding conflict. And you can see progressively, here where I'm protecting myself, there I'm hurting someone. This is malicious. This is more about just, I'm trying to avoid punishment or embarrassment. And then we go even a step deeper where it's just like, I don't like conflict. So we lie in order not to have conflict. Now, some of us do the opposite, and we feel good about ourselves. Oh, I'm a truth teller. Go back to People Matter More and figure out how to dress your truth up differently, or sometimes be quiet. But anyway, that's a whole group of people. That's not in this sermon. Then there are a whole bunch of us who are avoiders of conflict, right? No worries. Meanwhile, we are just ticked. No worries. Late for the 15th time, and we tell all of our friends, I can't stand when he's late. But to his face, no worries, don't worry about it. I'm busy that night. Just make sure you don't get caught. Right? No, I'm too busy, I can't do that. And then they see you at the bowling alley with your other friends. I agree, I'm on board, but really you're not. And then later, so then the team makes a decision, and you never agreed with it, but you said you did, and later on you undercut it the whole time at work. I never thought that was a good idea. Well, why did you say it was? Oh, because you're scared. The first one is about maliciousness. These last 2 categories are about courage. We lack the courage to tell the truth. The first one is malicious. These other categories are more to pathetic. Now, Galatians says something, and I'd like to do this whole passage, but we're just going to do the one verse. Galatians chapter 6 says this. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. This is just a fact of how God has created the world. is that if we continually sow certain actions, so we go back here, commandment 9 covers this top one, and we need to have we actually need in our society, we need serious penalties for people who hurt others and use lies to hurt others. But if we go, a couple levels down, this isn't about commandment number 9. This is more about reaping and sowing. If we continually sow dishonesty into our relationships, are we going to be more respected or less respected? Are we going to have better relationships or worse? We're going to have worse. And by the way, we know this. Here's the funny thing. On the one side, we think, nobody will notice when I do that. On the other side, we all know people who do this, and we all judge them. But then we think when we do it, nobody will notice. Meanwhile, we're talking about the people who do this. And we say, they're flaky. You can't trust what they say. You can't depend on them. You don't know what they really think. Blah, 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 blah. We say all of that. All of that, less respect. We all reap what we sow. And we just have a lack of courage to confront our character issues, to own up to our mistakes, to tell the truth. And it does come back to bite us. Ultimately, we always get found out. I told that story, and again, that one is just purely, the guy with the peas. But another one, and this one also didn't have huge consequences other than money and weekends wasted. But my wife, LaDawn, and I, when we first got married, I always thought, so I had spent my university years tree planting in the summers, which meant I spent all of my nights lying on the ground in a tent, which a lot of people assumed means I must love camping. And it meant the opposite. I hated it. I only did it because I made a lot of money. My wife had grown up camping, so I assumed that means she loves it. And again, as I've come to realize, many people who grew up camping, as a result, do not love it. But when we got married, we each assumed the other person loved camping. So we bought camping gear. We received expensive gifts and bought very nice sleeping bags and camping stoves and a tent and blah, blah, blah. And we would plan weekends with friends to go camping, which every weekend that we would to go camping in a tent for me, I'm like, oh, great, here we go again. But I love my wife, so let's just do this. And I'll never forget the time we were like, 2 years into our marriage. So this was starting already when we were dating, we're married. And I remember where we were still in our entryway in this tiny, tiny little apartment we were in. And we were going on another weekend camping. And I forget who started it, but one of us said, I'm not really looking forward to this. One of us finally said the truth. And the other one was immediately, neither am I. So why are we doing this? We have wasted weekends we'll never get back, out in the bugs, on the ground, uncomfortable, afraid of the weather. This is insane, not taking showers. Why do some of you like it? I don't know. Love to be outdoors, love to hike. My wife and I, we love to be outdoors. We love to hike, and we love at the end of it all to come home and have a shower and lie in a bed. And preferably to have a washing machine and a dryer somewhere. Now, of course, there was no long-term repercussions. In fact, it turned into a sermon illustration, so I'm glad we lied to each other. But ultimately, this will get you in trouble. Dishonesty in relationships will come back to bite us. It will affect your character. It will do all of those things. And so we need to have courage. At the same time, we need to have a proper view of God. A God who is not a forensic accountant, who cares more about his rules than he does about people. People always matter more. So, let's prayerfully end with this. Are there areas of my life where I am lying to avoid conflict? I am betting there's a huge chunk of us in here who probably have some areas like that in our lives right now. Are there areas of my life I am excusing lies of omission? There might be some people right now here or online who are wrestling with this. Don't let yourself off the hook. Lies of omission are still lies. And what is one thing God might want me to take from this sermon? Why don't you bow your heads with me and close your eyes? Let's just take a deep breath. God is good. Thank you, Lord. Love is the backbone of everything. Who you are, how you see us, how we are to interact with the world. Father, give us courage. Some of us are so conflict averse, and it bites us in our relationships over and over again. Help us to find the courage to tell the truth in ways that honor and love the people we love. Father, also, keep us from the lies that really deeply bother you, whether of omission or commission, where we are hurting or taking advantage of others. May we not participate in those things. And may we know your love again as we go home today. In Jesus' name we pray. And all God's people said, Amen.